Before we jump into today's news roundup, you guys, we are doing a listener survey giveaway. If you guys want to enter, go into the episode summary and click on the link for more details.
Do I look like Elizabeth Holmes?
Okay, you guys, if you're listening, Julia is wearing a black turtleneck with her hair pulled back into a perfect pony. So yes, you do look a little bit a la Elizabeth Holmes.
This is my office power outfit. I think it's good to have like a uniform when you go in. And one of my go-tos has always been the turtleneck, the black turtleneck, long sleeve turtleneck. And I always feel like Steve Jobs and Elizabeth Holmes, but powerful.
I love it. You know what's funny is that the turtleneck look, it reminds me of when I used to work at Goldman. There was one guy in the office who, by the way, you guys, at Goldman, everyone is like very buttoned up, right? Like you're in a full suit, tie, like women are in blazers or like a dress, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And most of the guys dress really traditionally, but then there was this one guy who would always wear a black turtleneck under his suit jacket, like no tie, no button-up shirt. That was like his look. And the guys on my team would roast him so hard all the time. And I felt bad because I was like, you know what? He's trying to like create some style. Is he pulling it off? I don't know. That's subjective, but he's trying.
Was he chubby?
No, he was skinny.
Because I feel like, I also like it because it's very slimming. You know what I mean? So maybe that guy like read in a GQ article that, wearing black and wearing a turtleneck makes you look skinnier. So I don't know, but good for him for owning his personal aesthetic.
Right? You got to give them kudos when they try. Otherwise, they never try again.
It's definitely a look. Not my look on a man, but a look.
Well, it looks good on you, and that's all that matters.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome to GlowJob, the beauty podcast that's more than skin deep. We're the only podcast
To make you hotter and smarter. All right, guys, let's jump into the news of this week. And first up, Saie announces their official partnership with the New York Knicks and the Knicks City Dancers. What are our thoughts on this?
I think it makes sense. I think that there have been so many amazing beauty collabs that are really diving into sports, both men and women's sports. But what's your take?
Saie is predominantly a makeup brand, right? It's like very clean girl makeup. And so for the Knicks City Dancers, like those are the girls who are dancing during halftime at Knicks games. It makes sense there, but like, I don't know. Am I crazy to think that Knicks players don't usually wear Saie? Like, I don't get this.
I mean, so I don't think it's so much about that, but so Saie is New York based. It's headquartered in New York. So it makes sense they do go for a fellow New York organization to support. But for me, it's kind of like they're going after the girlfriends, right? It's kind of reminiscent of when Glow Recipe did that collab with Amex. And then all of the girlies that are ever at an airport, they run to the Amex lounge to see what Glow Recipe freebies they get. I feel like Saie might be angling for that, getting, all of the guys to bring their girlfriend so they can try and get freebies and then post about Saie. Is that the plan?
I could see that being a thing, trying to get women more into sports. I mean, the NBA and every single National League sports is like trying to get women to watch more. So, okay, I'm on board.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many great partnerships. I think it is Sephora, specifically Sephora Fragrance, that also partners with the Golden State Warriors. So they're an example. Skims, I guess they're more clothing, but it's definitely like a women's brand. I know they do some men's clothing, but they're all over the Olympics. SK2 also did the Olympics. And then, yeah, there's like Charlotte Tilbury and F1, Glossier, lots of like sports collabs. So I get it. I get it.
But Glossier was WNBA. So that one to me, I'm like, aha, I get it,
I think that they're just trying to make sports more fun for everybody.
Yeah, that's true. We'll see. Next up in news, L'Oreal grows its stake in Galderma, which owns aesthetic injectable brands and skincare companies.
So L'Oreal here, they had previously owned a portion of Galderma, about 10%, but now they officially own 20%. So they literally doubled down. And this was not a, cheap 10%. A 10% stake in Galderma is estimated to be about $4.9 billion.
So some of the brands under the Galderma umbrella include Dysport, Restylane, and Sculptra.
So this is pretty major if you ask me. I mean, like when it comes to L'Oreal, obviously they own tons and tons of consumer brands, but here they're showing like a really explicit interest in all of these different kinds of injectables. And I mean, Galderma, they basically have this entire portfolio that just rivals so many of the other major injectables out there. Because like Dysport is a main competitor to Botox, and both of them are basically neurotoxins, right? But you also have Restylane, Juvederm, Sculptura is also a really popular one. So obviously they feel like this is where the industry is going to be headed.
I think Dysport is such a big one because it's the neurotoxin that actually acts faster than Botox. And also it can diffuse over a larger surface, so it can make a softer appearance overall. I mean, like Botox has been dominating the industry for so long. It's time that another neurotoxin kind of takes that first place.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like whenever I talk to girlfriends who are more interested in Dysport and I just ask them why, I feel like a lot of younger women like it because one, it does act faster. It cuts that time in half. So like if Botox takes a week, Dysport's only going to take 2 to 3 days, but it's because of that softer appearance. Like, I think it does the same thing as Botox, but for some reason, it's just like gravitating and, resonating more with younger people.
Yeah, that's like the stereotype of like Botox face when people are just frozen and they look scary and kind of statue-like. I think that's why people like Dysport. It just looks softer and more natural.
Yeah, I guess a little bit diffused because I've seen people get Botox in like one specific area. Like let's say you get it right here, right? And then your eyebrow is just kind of stuck up there for however long it takes to go away. But I think, there's so many reasons why like Botox has a bad rap. So clearly they need another competitor in the space for neurotoxins.
And then within consumer brands that Galderma owns, they also own Alastin, Cetaphil, and Differin.
And so I'm interested what L'Oreal is going to continue doing when it does come to this space. Because a couple weeks ago, they did announce a partnership with MasterCard, specifically in Mexico. But the whole idea is to really just help beauty professionals and those starting their own businesses be able to afford things in the aesthetic space, whether that's products or just, being able to buy things. And maybe they're going to be buying things like Dysport, Restylane, and Sculptura. And next up in news, Netflix is set to acquire Warner Brothers for a whopping $72 billion. But let's be real, a major story like this doesn't come without quite a bit of drama. And right now, all the drama is coming from Paramount Pictures.
To give you guys the backstory here, and this is like true corporate drama, and I love nothing more than corporate drama. This is my favorite kind of gossip. I'm going to give you the lowdown. But basically, Warner Brothers is splitting off into 2 separate companies. So one entity is going to be the studio and streaming business, and the other entity is going to be just the cable networks. So think like CNN, Discovery, etc. Warner Brothers and Netflix, they agreed upon this deal because Netflix wants Warner Brothers IP. These are the franchises like Harry Potter. These are all the HBO shows like Sex and the City, etc. Netflix is the biggest streamer out there, and now they want to become like even bigger. So this is a mutually beneficial deal for both of them. Now, Paramount has been trying to acquire Warner Brothers for a long time. And this is now the analogy that I like to call the love triangle. So basically, it's been like Netflix and Warner Brothers, they've been booed up. They're like super into each other. They're like, let's lock this deal down. We're going to walk down the aisle. We're going to get married. It's going to be amazing. And then Paramount runs down to the freaking altar and they're like, no.
I object.
Literally, they're like, I object. And so they have come in with what is called a hostile bid. So Paramount is offering more money than Netflix for Warner Brothers. The Netflix deal, $72 billion, but Paramount is offering over $100 billion. So basically Paramount is like running to Warner Brothers' parents, AKA the shareholders of the company. And they're being like, no. We're the better guy here. We have more money. We're richer. You should want your child to marry us. But the thing is, Warner Brothers doesn't want to go into this deal with Paramount. The other main issue here right now is that with the big Netflix deal, people are concerned that this is going to be really difficult to pass by the regulatory agencies. So like I said before, Netflix is a big streaming company. Warner Brothers has a huge streaming business. The regulatory agency is going to see this as like basically a monopoly, and monopolies are not good for consumers. Paramount is saying, hey, we're not really a big streaming player. It's probably going to be a lot easier for us to pass all the regulatory stuff, and we're giving you more money. So like, please just choose us. And now we're all stuck in this little triangle where basically Paramount's trying to convince shareholders to take them. And Warner Brothers is like, we really don't want to keep playing this out. Like, we already rejected you. Like, go away, please. We're trying to marry Netflix. And that is basically it.
Honestly, I love a little corporate drama. Doesn't it kind of sound like Succession? Really, though, right?
Does.
I
Yes.
mean, and Succession would be one of those HBOs included in these deals, but it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I don't know if I were a shareholder in Warner Brothers, like I would be looking out for my own bottom line. So I see why it's such a good move for Paramount to go directly to the source.
So if the Netflix and Warner Brothers deal does go through, eventually this could be good for the consumer in some ways because they've signaled that they might be bundling costs down the road. So like if you pay for Netflix and you pay for HBO right now separately, they're not initially going to do this, but eventually I think they're going to have a bundling deal so you can save some money between the two. That's the one positive I see. I mean, again, it will become a giant monopoly and we're all just going to be paying more and more for streaming services, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not that different as to when like Hulu and Disney had that merger, right? Like basically we didn't have to pay for Hulu anymore. And that was kind of like the silver lining, at least on the consumer end.
Next up, Summer Fridays is now entering an apparel partnership with Gap.
So this one is honestly pretty exciting because Gap is such like an iconic American classic when it comes to just making clothes, right? Sweaters, casual wear, all different types of things. And I feel like Summer Fridays is a good fit for them because they kind of fit that kind of more relaxed aesthetic with their whole clean beauty. But within this partnership, Summer Fridays is really entering their first kind of venture into apparel, really just delivering a lot of kind of staples. I would almost call them like Brandy-Melville-Esque, if that makes sense, especially if you look at the color palette, because it's like pajamas, loungewear, comfy t-shirts, things like that.
So the collection is 20 pieces, mostly loungewear and cozy essentials, but there are some soft knit sweaters, there's fleece sets, pajamas, flannels, lots of matching sets I see in this.
This is super exciting for Gap. I've loved really just kind of watching their resurgence and how they're really trying to inject themselves back into today's modern culture because they're a staple in so many ways. They've been around for a really long time, but they've been coming out with some really impressive collaborations in the past couple of years. Like just recently, they did a whole line with like Gwyneth Paltrow and her daughter Apple. There was that iconic Cat's Eye collab. So clearly they're going after like that Gen Z, Gen Alpha market, but they've partnered with so many different kind of consumer brands over the past few years.
Some of those include Faye, Mad Happy, Malbon, Doen, Harlem Fashion Row, Colt Gaia, and Sandy Liang. And, these are all great ones, but let us not forget when they did their partnership with Kanye. And what a flop that was several years ago.
I mean, I think they probably just gave Kanye West a little bit too much of like, what do you call it? Like artistic freedom with how they wanted the collab to be. Because I think we might have talked about this on the pod before, but when they actually did that collab, I went to the store to check it out because I was just so curious. And the entire store, they had cleared almost everything out or just like pushed everything to the sides to focus on this Kanye collab. And the Kanye collab was just these giant, like above ground swimming pool size, like very, very, very large plastic receptacles just filled with hoodies to the brim. And that's all it was. Like there was no way to like kind of like sift through, find your size. It was just these giant above ground swimming pools full of black hoodies. Did you ever go to this?
I didn't go to this, but one of my close girlfriends was at Gap Creative during the time of the Kanye collab. And she would routinely get dinner with me with her head in her hands like this. And she would just tell me like what show it was working with him and his team because he wouldn't communicate. Like they would have deadlines and he would go MIA. So like, how could they get things done?
It probably was a really successful collab, but I would be kind of pissed too if, I was pulling my hair out and for the end of the day, just to have it be like a bunch of black hoodies.
I actually don't think it was successful. It was during the period of time when their stock was down so bad. They thought that was the thing that was going to bring it back up and it did not work. But at least now they're doing well. Now they're doing
well. Because I mean, back in the day, like Yeezy, that was everything. I thought it would have done a lot better. I mean, at least in San Francisco, when they were like, literally all the tech bros were obsessed with Kanye. Like literally they lived and breathed Life of Pablo, but they were the ones rushing to get it. But I guess that's maybe not like an honest overview of how the rest of the world works when you're just in like your 7x7 mile San Francisco.
One small demographic of America loved it.
I thought it did well. And next in pop culture news, this one has been so much fun, but 50 Cent has officially produced a P. Diddy documentary and it's on Netflix. And, if anybody knows how to hold a grudge, it is 50 Cent.
Oh, yeah. 50 Cent came packing with receipts. I mean, he starts off the very first episode with some deep cuts. So the first episode opens up with footage of P. Diddy. P. Diddy is on the phone with his attorneys, and this is when he was just getting indicted for the multiple charges. And so these are really close-up videos of him. He is sitting in his hotel room. It's very clear that whoever is filming him has a relationship with him because it's right up in his face. Like they're kind of like talking on little side bits of it. And what I heard is that 50 Cent reached out to the videographer who was filming P. Diddy during this year. I think it was in 2023 or 2024. And he identified the videographer that P. Diddy was working with, basically buy that footage off of him, and then use that as the opening for the show. I thought that was incredible.
Honestly, props to him. I hope he wins an Emmy for this. That's amazing.
Yeah. I know. But like, it is you guys, it's actually a really dark and sad documentary. I'm about halfway through. Like, this is not like an easy, light watch because they interview so many people who have been in contact with Diddy, who have worked with him, who have grown up with him, his victims, former, employees. It gets really deep. And if you have seen him on TikTok, there's interviews of him doing press for the documentary. This man is giddy. He is so happy because guess what? If you guys didn't know this, 50 Cent and P. Diddy, Sean P. Diddy Combs, they have been enemies for so long. And it is clear after watching this documentary that 50 Cent has been working on this doc for so long, gathering all this evidence, waiting for his day to let this documentary come to light. And honestly, it was really well produced.
And this has been going on for years now. Literally anytime 50 Cent was on an interview or a talk show, and anytime anyone would give him a mic, he would just take that opportunity to on P. Diddy. Like he would talk about the white parties and the boys and the baby oil. So this is like his time in the sun right now. But I really just love how he always goes the extra mile to take down his enemies.
He does. But you know why? It's because Sean Combs is a bad man. And like a legitimately bad man. And that's not to say 50 Cent doesn't have like skeletons in his closet and stuff. I mean, when he released his memoir, this was way back in the day. It was about his book when he got like shot a bunch of times, and which was a really interesting book, by the way. Like, he's not a perfect man, but I think he's pretty honest about like who he is. These two guys, they've been in the industry for so long. They both have been major producers. They both have made very like popular music. They have had to interact so many times that I bet you 50 Cent has just seen the worst of Sean. And it's just like, why is this man still on top? Like, does not make sense.
Yeah, I feel like, 50 Cent may have done some bad things, but nowhere nearly as bad as like what P. Diddy has done. But, the documentary is such a good kind of like clapback move. I don't even know if you want to call it a clapback. He's just like educating the masses on how bad P. Diddy actually is. But there have been a few like extremely spiteful things that 50 Cent has done in the past that I gotta share. Have you heard about what he has done to Ja Rule?
No, what did he do to Ja Rule?
Okay, so he and Ja Rule have like not been friendly with each other for quite some time now. And, 50 Cent has obviously been doing really, really well. He made a bunch of money from vitamin water. And, Ja Rule's career, you can't really say the same in terms of levels of sustained success. So 50 Cent would basically be tracking Ja Rule's tour dates, and Ja Rule would have these shows and all the tickets would be on Groupon. 50 Cent would go out there and literally buy out the first like few sections of this guy's show, just so that when everybody showed up and it was showtime, there would be nobody in the front.
Oh, I think I've heard this story before because I think this is a thing that Fitty does a lot. It's his go-to power move, and I love it. I love that this is just his thing.
I know. And like also his beef with Floyd Mayweather. Have you heard of this one?
That one I've heard of. Yeah.
Yeah. So just to recap, like back in the day, like Throwback, but with the ice bucket challenge. I remember 50 Cent, like, he did the ice bucket challenge. And then his way of, challenging someone else is he asked Floyd Mayweather to read a few pages of Harry Potter. And then he would donate like $10 million to a charity, but really just putting Floyd Mayweather on blast for like not really being able to read.
So
Crazy.
bad. I love how vindictive he is.
All right, everyone, that is a wrap on today's news roundup. We hope you learned something new. And just as a reminder, we are doing our listener survey. So if you want to enter for the giveaway, you can find the link in the episode summary.
And then Thursday is going to be our last episode of season 1. I cannot believe the whole year has passed, but what a great time it's been.
I know. Oh my gosh, but it's a great episode and you guys are going to love it. So be sure not to miss it.
Bye.
Bye.